Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
So we got the fender back on. It's lined up pretty good. I'll tell you a couple little things to keep in mind whenever you're putting the truck together like this. One thing you want to make sure of is you want to make sure you have the seal in there. This is the original seal. I'm probably just going to use these again and clean them up. They're in pretty good shape. And the door already fits good with this seal. You get new seals. A lot of times the door won't fit very well. So whatever seal you're going to use in the end, you need to be using right now when you're fitting the door. The gaps, it's all about the shims usually on these older trucks. See, there's a shim there, shim down on the bottom, along with some rust I gotta fix. The gap's not bad, needs a little work. You gotta pay attention like overspray. That's overspray making it look like it's a little larger than it is. One thing I did notice is this needs to go in just a little bit. I think it's come loose from the inside of the door. I'm not sure about this. I think this needs to come out level with that because they both have a molding. If the molding's gonna line up, the sheet metal's gotta line up, I believe. If you wanna get your gaps right, it's all about mocking it up, putting it together, taking it apart, putting it together, taking it apart. The very first thing I did with the truck before I ever took it apart was line all the gaps up, line all the panels up, get them where I wanted them to be. And then I marked what I could so that everything hopefully goes back where it was. But things move around, you beat and bang on these panels, things happen. So line it up, take it apart, put it back together, line it up again, take it back apart. It's just part of the process. So the first thing I did was get underneath this thing and make sure that the cab is sitting squarely on the frame. Once you do that, then you got to line the doors up. Anytime you're lining these doors, you want to make sure you have the seal on there. So we're going to find our seal and put it on. We're going to make sure our door is where we want it. Once we do that, then we can put our fender on. So everything gets squared from the frame up. Frame, cab, doors, fenders. That's where we'll start. So right now I'm just setting it in place. No shims or anything. So I set the fender up there, put a bolt in it, put the bolt in the bottom, and I put a bolt right there. Look how tight it is. I can't even pick it up into place. So it's got too much pressure on it. So we want to work from the back of the fender to the front. So we're going to take that bolt out of the front. I've got something to hold the fender from falling. We'll just let it rest on it. We'll see if we can align it once we take this bolt back out. That took a lot of the tension off of it, but it's still too tight. So that means the fender's got to go down some. So I've got everything loose except I've got the top bolt in it and the bottom bolt. And when I pick it up, I get a gap under this. So that tells me it needs shims. So these trucks, they had shims everywhere. That's how they made everything fit. There's not much bending to these fenders and doors and such. They've got so much strength to them. So you have to shim it into place. So that's what I'm gonna do now, is look for some shims, get those under the top of the fender, get our body line straight. Because we gotta get that before we get anything else. We want our gap and our body line. Let's see if we can't work on that. So this is a factory style shim. These are the ones that came off the truck, or one of them. You can put them under there and let it sit on that. Typically I use washers instead. Then they don't have a chance of falling off when you start pushing and pulling this fender around. So we'll pull this bolt out and put a couple washers under there. Now we look at our gap. We're still low on the gap. So we'll add a couple more. So we're close there. So now we'll get the other bolts in and work with the gap. But it's sitting on the shims. Sitting on those shims. God, that looks like a lot, don't it? 4 washers. The line is pretty good. So now we need to set the bottom as far as in and out. So this has to come out. Now look at the gap back here. Whoa. Huge gap. So that's what we got to try to set next. Let's try to set the bottom. We don't want it too far in. We want it exactly right. When we get it exactly right, let's see how many shims it takes in there. If I look at my gap, my fender's slightly high, just slightly. So I'm gonna try to find something about half the thickness of one of those washers and put in there and see if that doesn't line it up. Now look in here. Look how much space between the fender and the cab. It's quite a bit. It's probably 1/2 inch. And that's what it took to line the panels up on the outside. It's a pretty good alignment there. But you wouldn't make the spacer any thinner. If you make the spacer any thinner, the fender goes in, then the door would have to go in to line with the fender. And these things teeter-totter. So if I go in here, I'm coming out up there. Right now, all that's lined up all the way around. So I fit the door to the cab, and now I have to fit the fender to the door. Just get in there. So I re-shimmed the top bolt up here. Got my gap or my line where I want it. The gap's pretty good. The rest of the door still looks good. I'm gonna put the cowl panel up there between the fenders and just make sure there's no surprises. Need to tighten the front down. It's looking pretty good.
Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right?
So I got the fenders back on. Got the doors and the fenders lined up. Looking pretty good. Still a lot of body work to do on the fenders if I use these fenders. Got to decide if I'm cutting them on the inside or not. So I'm going to do a little playing around with the ride height. I've got a wheel over there that I'm going to kind of stick under there and see how it fits. Just to give me an idea of what's going to be going on. Anyway, we're going to play with the ride height a little bit and see which way we're going to go with that.
I'm everything that they ain't, it can't be, it won't be. Wanna see me fall, I can't go, I won't leave. Coming from the block with plain clothes and police, straight up to the top with bankrolls and rollies. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how low I'm going to go. Am I going to do a 5.7 static drop, leave it there? Am I going to put bags on it? I don't know. I'm trying to see if I got to cut the inner fender out to make more room for more tire. That's just a mock-up wheel sitting there. It's 29 inches tall. Right now it only dropped about 3 3/4 inches from what it was. So, lots of questions. Gotta figure it out. What do you think? Bags? Static drop? I don't know. Undecided.
With me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right?